The 7 levels of Robin. Level 1, Trash. Stephanie Brown. Before donning the red and green, she operated under the name Spoiler, fighting crime on her own terms and constantly crossing paths with Batman and Robin. She wasn't trained for Gotham's war, but she had the determination of someone who refused to stay on the sidelines. When Tim Drake stepped away from the role, Batman took a gamble. He made Stephanie the new Robin. For a brief moment, she carried the mantle with pride, but that pride soon became the fuel for one of Gotham's most costly mistakes. Stephanie wanted to prove she was more than a side note. Her opportunity came when she discovered one of Batman's contingency plans. A strategy to unite Gotham's criminal gangs under a single leader he could control. Against direct orders, she tried to put it in motion herself. The plan backfired instantly. Rival gangs turned the streets into battlegrounds, civilians were caught in the chaos, and the city spiraled into war. The event became known as War Games, one of the darkest periods in Batman's timeline. Captured and tortured by Black Mask, Stephanie suffered injuries so severe that she later died in a hospital bed, or so everyone believed. Batman blamed himself for pushing her too far too fast, and Gotham learned a grim lesson about what happens when the Robin mantle is handed to someone unprepared. Years later, Stephanie returned, revealed to have survived thanks to Leslie Tompkins faking her death. Her comeback divided fans. Some saw it as a redemption arc, others viewed it as DC undoing a powerful tragedy just to fill a gap. She went on to become Batgirl and Spoiler again, but her Robin era never escaped its legacy of failure. To this day, it stands as the shortest and most disastrous tenure in Robin history, defined by raw heart, reckless action, and a chain of consequences that still echo through Gotham's lore. Bruce Wayne Jr. He's not from the main timeline, but from alternate futures and Elseworld stories, where writers imagined what would happen if Batman's son inherited the mantle. In Superman and Batman Generations, he's portrayed as Bruce's child, alongside Clark Kent Jr., the next Superman. Together, they represent the children of legend stepping into their father's shadows. As Robin, Bruce Jr. served more as a concept than a character. He wore the costume, joined Batman on patrol, and eventually became his world's version of Batman. But his run had no defining storyline or emotional weight. No moment that burned into continuity or fan memory. His existence felt like a tribute to legacy rather than an expansion of it. He represents the idea of Robin rather than the role itself. While intriguing on paper, Bruce Jr. never influenced the mythos or shaped Gotham in any meaningful way. There were no long arcs, no evolution, and no identity beyond the son of. His presence in the Robin lineage is more a curiosity than a contribution, an Elseworlds footnote that came and went without leaving a mark. Level 2. Bad Helena Wayne. From the beginning, her story was defined by inheritance. She grew up surrounded by masks, training in both her parents' worlds, the discipline of her father and the cunning of her mother. On that alternate Earth, crime had evolved differently. Gotham was a legacy city, so when her father aged and her mother's past came calling, Helena stepped up as Robin. Her time under the R was short but symbolic. She wasn't a sidekick in training, she was a successor. Her Robin costume mirrored her father's design, but carried sharper edges, more personality, and her mother's flair for the dramatic. She fought alongside Bruce for years until tragedy struck. During a mission, Catwoman was killed, and Bruce followed soon after in battle. That loss reshaped Helena. She left behind the Robin mantle and took on a new identity, Huntress, using both her parents' lessons to wage her own war on Gotham's corruption. When Crisis on Infinite Earths rewrote DC continuity in 1985, Earth 2 and everything connected to it were erased. Helena's Robin legacy disappeared overnight. Later versions of Huntress returned in new timelines, but without that same foundation as Bruce and Selina's daughter. For decades, Helena Wayne's Robin history existed only as a fragment, a reminder of a parallel Gotham where Batman's story actually came full circle. In terms of the Robin lineage, Helena's impact is more myth than milestone. She's remembered by devoted fans of the pre-Crisis era, but rarely mentioned among the main Bat family. Her version of Robin served as a poetic idea, the child who bridged two moral worlds, but her presence faded with her timeline. She's a Robin defined by circumstance, one who mattered deeply for a moment and then slipped into the background of comic book history. Duke Thomas. He entered Gotham's story during one of its darkest modern chapters, 0 Year. His parents were victims of the Joker's gas attacks, leaving him orphaned and filled with anger. But Duke's story didn't follow the traditional Robin path. He didn't get adopted by Bruce or recruited in a costume. Instead, he became the leader of We Are Robin, a movement where dozens of Gotham's teenagers, inspired by Batman, wore makeshift gear and patrolled their own neighborhoods. It was chaotic, messy, and heroic in a grassroots way. The symbol of Robin turned into a public rebellion. Batman eventually took notice. Duke's leadership and composure made him stand out from the others. After the movement ended, Bruce offered him formal training, but not as a traditional Robin. Duke became the Signal, a new kind of partner designed for daylight daylight operations. While every other member of the Bat family worked in the shadows, he became Gotham's daytime guardian. His metahuman ability to sense and manipulate light made him even more distinct, rare gift in a world of mortals. Despite his originality, Duke's character struggled to find momentum in the larger continuity. His stories were promising but fragmented, appearing in limited series and crossovers without a defining arc to anchor him. His concept, the People's Robin who became something more, deserved more spotlight than it received. In the grand ranking, Duke Thomas sits at this level because his contributions are more symbolic than transformative. He represents an evolution of the Robin identity, a community stepping up when heroes fall, but never reached the cultural or narrative height of his predecessors. Level 3. Mid, Matt McGinnis. He grew up in the shadow of two legends, his brother Terry, the new Batman of Neo-Gotham, and the myth of Bruce Wayne that still haunted the city decades later. From the start, he was the curious observer, always sneaking into the Batcave, studying the technology, and wanting to be part of something bigger. Gotham in his era wasn't filled with mobsters or clowns, it was overrun with corporate corruption and tech-driven crime. Becoming Robin in that future meant adapting to a world where danger was digital, and heroism required more circuitry than stealth. When Terry finally saw that Matt's persistence came with skill, he agreed to train him under Bruce's supervision. The suit was redesigned, sleek armor with adaptive sensors, flight assist, and neural feedback systems that turned Robin into something closer to a partner than a sidekick. Matt's enthusiasm gave the new Batman Beyond series a burst of youthful energy, the same spark that the original Robin once brought to Gotham decades earlier. But in Neo-Gotham, every mission carried higher stakes. Drones replaced henchmen, and artificial intelligence watched every move. Matt had to grow fast or risk becoming another casualty of the city's evolution. What made him compelling was how his story mirrored the original idea of Robin in a new age. He wasn't born into tragedy. He chose this life after watching others carry its burden. His dynamic with Terry was less teacher-student and more brother-to-brother, a constant push between protection and independence. Over time, he proved his worth, taking on foes like Jokers, gangs, and high-tech mercenaries, even saving Terry's life more than once. Still, his time as Robin hasn't reached legendary territory. His appearances remain limited mostly to the Batman Beyond comics and brief cameos in animation. Fans see him as a refreshing extension of the mythos rather than a pillar of it. He's the Robin of tomorrow, spirited, loyal, and still developing his identity. Level 4. OK, Tim Drake. Long before he wore the costume, he was the kid who figured it all out. By connecting the dots between Batman and Nightwing's movements, he uncovered their identities on his own. That discovery didn't come from obsession, but from pure observation. When Jason Todd died, Gotham felt darker and Tim believed Batman was slipping. He approached Bruce directly, arguing that Batman needed a partner to stay grounded. That confidence alone earned him the role. From the start, Tim operated with precision. He wasn't the most athletic or aggressive Robin, but he was easily the most analytical. His detective instincts rivaled Bruce's, and that made him invaluable. Tim's version of Robin was defined by strategy, tracking clues, building gadgets, and piecing together the city's chaos like a puzzle. He brought balance to Batman's world after years of turmoil. While others relied on raw emotion, Tim used logic. His time with Young Justice and later the Teen Titans solidified him as a leader capable of handling multiple crises without losing his composure. His legacy is marked by consistency and loyalty. He became Red Robin later in his career, carving out an identity separate from Bruce while still representing the same ideals. His dynamic with other Robins, especially Damian Wayne, showed his adaptability, mentoring, guiding, and occasionally clashing with the new generation. Yet, despite his long service, his presence has often been overshadowed by louder stories. DC's reboots have rewritten his history multiple times, softening some of his edge and confusing his place in the timeline. But among readers, Tim remains the most stable Robin, a figure of intelligence and emotional steadiness who defined what it meant to be a partner rather than a protege. Jason Todd. His story as Robin began in the same place Bruce Wayne's tragedy was born, Crime Alley. He wasn't a circus prodigy or a detective prodigy, he was a street kid trying to survive. When Batman found him, Jason was caught in the act of stealing the tires off the Batmobile. Most would have expected an arrest, but Bruce saw something else in him, the same fire that once fueled his own mission. He took Jason in, hoping to turn that defiance into discipline. For a while, it seemed to work. Jason trained harder than anyone, learning every combat technique Bruce could offer. But beneath the mask, that rage never fully disappeared. As the second Robin, he brought something raw and unpredictable to Gotham's rooftops. He was faster, louder, and bolder than Dick Grayson. Criminals feared him, not just for the symbol he wore, but for the ferocity behind it. He didn't hesitate, and sometimes that made him dangerous. Batman's patience was tested constantly, but their partnership continued because Jason was effective. He got results. Readers in the 1980s saw a Robin who was more volatile, more human, a sidekick who wasn't afraid to question his mentor. That tension built toward one of the most defining moments in comic history. In a Death in the Family, 1988, Jason discovered that his long-lost mother was still alive and traveled to the Middle East to find her. What he didn't know was that the Joker was waiting. The encounter ended with a savage beating and an explosion that took Jason's life. DC left the decision up to the fans through a phone vote, and by a narrow margin, they chose to kill him. Overnight, Jason Todd became the first Robin to die on page, a decision that sent shockwaves through both the story and the fandom. His death changed Batman forever. The guilt haunted Bruce for years, shaping his relationships with every Robin that followed. It also changed the tone of the franchise. Suddenly, the Robin mantle came with real danger, real consequences. For over a decade, Jason stayed dead, serving as a symbol of Batman's greatest failure. Then, in the early 2000s, Under the Hood rewrote that silence. Brought back to life through the Lazarus Pit, Jason returned as the Red Hood, taking up the Joker's old alias to wage his own war on crime. As Red Hood, he fought differently. He carried guns, made his own rules, and targeted criminals that Batman refused to kill. His conflict with Bruce was personal, a reflection of everything that went wrong in their bond. Though his methods were ruthless, his motives were rooted in the same pursuit of justice he'd once shared with Batman. His legacy as Robin is short, violent, and unforgettable. He wasn't the sidekick who stood in the spotlight for long, but the one whose death and return reshaped the mythology. Every Robin after him carried the weight of his memory. In the timeline of Gotham's partners, he remains the spark that forced Batman and his readers to realize that even Robins can bleed. Level 5. Good. Carrie Kelly. In The Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller's 1986 story about an older, broken Bruce Wayne coming out of retirement, Gotham was burning under gangs and political chaos. Somewhere in that mess was Carrie, a 15-year-old kid with red glasses, a slingshot, and zero fear. When she saw Batman nearly beaten to death by a mutant gang, she didn't freeze. She acted. That moment changed the story of Robin forever. Carrie's version of Robin wasn't chosen in a cave or trained for months. She earned the title by saving Batman's life. That alone flipped the script of what a sidekick could be. Bruce, scarred and cynical, saw in her the spark he'd lost, the energy that once kept the mission alive. She became his new partner in a Gotham that had already given up on heroes, and from the moment she put on that makeshift costume, her presence brought life back to the legend. Her style was raw and fearless. Instead of gadgets, she used improvisation, smoke pellets, slingshots, quick thinking. In a city crawling with armed criminals and mutants, her courage felt like defiance. Carrie's design, the bright green glasses, short cape, and punk attitude became instantly iconic. It broke through decades of the same image and gave Robin a modern face that matched the tone of Miller's dystopian Gotham. Readers connected with her because she felt real, a teenager stepping into a collapsing world and holding her ground beside a legend. Her story didn't stop there. She later appeared in The Dark Knight Strikes Again and The Master Race, evolving beyond Robin. She became Catgirl and eventually took on the mantle of Batwoman, continuing Bruce's mission long after his body began to fail. Each version showed how adaptable she was, a character built on resourcefulness rather than destiny. Even though her existence sits outside main DC continuity, Carrie's influence runs deep. She's referenced in multiple animated series and games, from The Dark Knight Returns adaptations to Batman v Superman, where her image inspired a nod to the fallen Robin's costume. Her legacy also helped redefine what Robin could mean, proving the mantle didn't belong to one gender or one timeline. Level 6. Great. Damian Wayne. He was born into war. The son of Bruce Wayne and Talia al Ghul, he was raised by the League of Assassins long before he ever set foot in Gotham. His training began almost as soon as he could walk. Swordsmanship, stealth, anatomy, tactics, everything was taught with the precision of a soldier. To the League, he was an heir. To Talia, he was a weapon. And to Bruce, when they finally met, he was a surprise that changed everything about what it meant to be Batman. His first encounter with his father was far from emotional. He arrived in Gotham already carrying the arrogance and confidence of someone who had been told he was superior to everyone around him. That attitude made him volatile. He dismissed orders, argued with allies, and treated combat like a competition. When he met Tim Drake, the current Robin at the time, the tension was immediate. Damian didn't ask for the title, he took it. His skill set was undeniable. Years of training under assassins gave him reflexes sharper than any of his predecessors. Batman eventually accepted him as his partner, but it was an uneasy alliance built on patience and constant correction. Over time, the father-son dynamic became the heart of his story. Working alongside Bruce forced Damian to unlearn everything the League had drilled into him. He started to understand the difference between discipline and control, between loyalty and blind obedience. In the Batman and Robin series by Grant Morrison, Damian's evolution became one of the most layered in modern comics. He learned how to fight without killing, how to think beyond survival, and how to protect life instead of taking it. Despite his young age, Damian earned the respect of the Bat family through sheer results. He proved his loyalty repeatedly, from defending Gotham during Batman's absence to leading the Teen Titans. His partnership with John Kent in Super Sons showed another side of him. less weapon, more child, where humor and friendship replaced the usual grim determination. Even his death and resurrection during the Batman Incorporated storyline reinforced his importance. Batman's grief over losing him was one of the rare moments where Bruce's humanity broke through his stoicism. He stands apart because his story embodies evolution. He came into the role already trained beyond human limits, yet his greatest growth came through empathy. His development from assassin to hero was about choice. Today, Damian continues to operate as a Robin with a sharper moral compass, still carrying his League instincts but guided by his father's ideals. Among all the Robins, he represents the most modern and complicated reflection of the role, a child born of darkness, learning to fight for light, and proving that even the deadliest beginnings can produce a true partner for the Batman. Level 7. GOAT. Dick Grayson. He is the name that defines the Robin legacy. The first, the original, and the one every successor would be compared to. His story started under the circus lights, part of the Flying Graysons, a family of acrobats whose act made them local legends. That ended the night his parents' trapeze ropes were sabotaged by a gangster named Tony Zuko. Bruce Wayne, watching from the audience, saw a reflection of his own past in the boy who had just lost everything. That connection sparked the beginning of one of the greatest partnerships in comic history. Taking Dick in wasn't just about protection. Bruce saw something in him that no one else had: discipline, agility, and courage beyond his years. Soon, the boy who once performed death-defying stunts for applause was swinging between Gotham rooftops for justice. Robin was born not in a cave, but in the shared pain of two people who understood loss. His bright costume and youthful energy balanced Batman's darkness, and together they became a symbol that Gotham hadn't seen before: fear and hope working side by side. As the years passed, Grayson's growth became the emotional center of the Batman mythos. He matured faster than most heroes, fighting villains that terrified adults while still figuring out who he was outside the shadow of the Bat. Comics like the New Teen Titans in the 1980s turned him from a sidekick into a leader. Under his guidance, the team became one of DC's biggest successes, rivaling the Justice League in popularity and impact. When he finally shed the Robin mantle and became Nightwing, it marked one of the rare moments in comic history where a sidekick successfully evolved into his own hero without losing what made him special. Nightwing's creation symbolized independence. He moved to Bloodhaven, a corrupt city just as chaotic as Gotham, and built his own identity from the ground up. His fighting style stayed fluid, acrobatic, quick, efficient, reflecting his circus roots. Yet, his moral compass remained unshaken. Where Batman was methodical and distant, Grayson led with empathy. He connected with people, encouraged his allies, and earned respect rather than fear. That human touch made him one of the most beloved figures in DC history. Over the years, Dick has filled nearly every role imaginable: Robin, Nightwing, even Batman himself. During Bruce's apparent death in Final Crisis, Grayson took on the cowl and brought his own tone to the role. Lighter, more flexible, but equally effective. He's been the emotional glue holding the Bat family together, bridging generations of heroes. Even in storylines like Forever Evil, where he faced public exposure and near death, his resilience reminded readers why he stands as the heart of Batman's world. His legacy goes beyond sidekick or successor. He proved that Robin was a journey. His evolution from a grieving acrobat to a global icon set the blueprint for every hero who came after. When people think of the word Robin, it's his image that comes first, a reminder that greatness can begin with tragedy and grow into legend. And that's it. So, after all these years, do you think anyone has truly surpassed Dick Grayson's legacy? Or is the first Robin still the greatest of them all? Comment down below, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.